Hello, everyone, and welcome to our very first office hours for the year, and special office hours at that. It is. I'm gonna try to recap 2024 here within the next 59 minutes or so. What do you say, Andrew? Shall we start
Go
realize
ahead.
it's a new year?
I think it's going to take a few minutes. Like we were talking about, I know it's we say it every year, but I genuinely cannot believe it's 2025. 2024 felt like, for both good and not so good reasons, like it was 3 years long. But we had a lot of great stuff happen. So, as you said, I mean, we figure we might as well recap some of the great stuff that happened, right? And ignore the bad stuff.
Focus on the positives. Yeah, I like that.
Exactly.
I still kept my config mess sweater on for the day, so of course trying to keep that spirit also still going on for like at least a few more days in 2025. Sitting next to basically a pile of Christmas ornaments and other stuff I was taken down this weekend, but one of the trees is still up and glowing, so happy for that.
Yes, we're in about the same boat here. And as you can see, I'm going to continue leaving the Home Alone house here for a little while as well. Just leave that little piece of holiday spirit. I agree.
Yeah, perfect. And I see some people are joining us online. And for those wishing us Happy New Year, Happy New Year back to you guys, of course, Absolutely. As always. Great to have you here. And I'm bringing up this chat in a separate window, so I have a fighting chance of follow it. But all right, Andrew, what are some of your highlights from the year that passed?
Well, where should we start? Do you want to start just kind of going down the list here, and or
yeah, that is perfect. Yes, let's do it.
I would say then. Some of the best things, some of the most memorable things for me from 2024 were the events that you and I had the opportunity to participate in. And I really do believe that it was a fantastic opportunity for us, for the community. Some of the ones that I was able to partake in were, of course, MMS. First and foremost. Wasn't the first one that I participated in last year, but Johan and I were up at MMS in Minneapolis at the Mall of America back in May. Fantastic event. If you've joined us or followed us for any amount of time, I'm sure you've heard of it. And we recommend attending one of the MMS conferences. But we also had the opportunity to go to the Flamingo edition in Fort Lauderdale this year. Met a whole lot of new friends, new colleagues, had some great conversations. Really, I can't say enough good about those two conferences.
No, if you ever get a chance to join one of those events, either the big one in May or the smaller ones in the fall, absolutely do so. It's on this side of the pond, it's pretty much the best conference you can find that is targeting, config manager, Intune, PowerShell security, and all the sort of related areas in those ecosystems, in those platforms. But just fantastic people there, good network opportunities, and you will make friends for life on these events. It's just the very nature of it. Good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt. On your comment about the best on this side of the pond, I know that those weren't the only conferences that you were at last year. I do believe you presented in Europe as well.
Yeah, I had a chance to go over to Workplace Ninja. If all goes well, we'll be presenting there in 2025 too. Hopefully both Andrew and I submitted sessions at least for it, so that there's a good chance. We'll see. But this is a great conference, about the same size as MMS, the big one. We were at 650 attendees, something like that, in September. But great conference, of course. Also worth mentioning, there is a virtual conference. This one is an in-person conference. We have our friends over at Endpoint Manager. They are running the Nordic Virtual Summit. That one happens as well. And apparently they're running a new one in early February, if I do the math here. 6th edition.
Excellent.
Yeah. So, I mean, those were the big conferences that we had a chance to either present at or highlight and work with in some capacity or another. But we did have a chance to both organize a few user group meetings, but also present at a few user group meetings. I know you, Andrew, were up in Minneapolis, the Twin City there for those, that user group. I was up in Phoenix and Seattle. We had one here in Chicago, or a little bit outside of Chicago, just before for Christmas here. But yeah, it's great to see user groups are still going strong. Unfortunately, we had a few that fell off the radar last year. It takes a lot of work and effort to organize user groups, but we are so grateful for the ones that are still hanging in there, still powering through through the years, providing great opportunities again for networking and learning. And yeah, user groups are good.
Absolutely, and would, if you do have the opportunity, would encourage you all to try to get out to one or two this year. And this is coming from the perspective of two gentlemen that mostly do their work in their own home by themselves, like so many do these days. There's just no. I've really come around to believe that there is no replacement for, at least every once in a while getting together and having those opportunities. So hopefully we can get some of those events this year.
Yep. All right. Shall we move over to some of the more technical side of things? This year we had a lot of software updates that simply wouldn't install properly unless the Windows and Windows recovery partitions were configured in a certain way. There was enough free space available, and not everyone had that. And especially if you get machines directly from OEMs, I mean, you guys don't really control the partitioning layout of it. And you can do that if you image them on your own. But a lot of folks realized that whatever size that was assigned to that recovery partition was way too small. You needed at least 250 meg free disk space on that volume, and some were pretty much just full. And that caused that update to simply not install. So we had our friend Martin Heimken. He's been tweeting a lot about that over the year, but he put together a quite remarkable script. Several iterations of this script by now, but this one helps you fix a situation where you do have a system that doesn't have enough partition. It's also a recovery partition. It also has the ability of shuffling around if needed. Because if the recovery partition is at the end of your drive, you can't really just, or at the beginning of your drive, you cannot just extend it because the other partition is in the way. So you basically need to remove it from where it's at and shrink the regular C drive so you can put it in the end of the right size on the platform. And this script does all that for you. So if you didn't have a chance to look into this one earlier this year, highly, highly recommend to do so. Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of discussions this year around patches for not just Windows itself, but also for UEFI hardening. There were some security concerns around BitLocker that ended up being actually a bug in the platform that required a fix. That was been taking a long time for Microsoft to get going, and it's still in progress. It's still in the works of coming up with good ways of implementing that hotfix, and that's something that we all, I think, will have to focus on quite a bit now in 2025. It's not enforced yet for just so darn complicated to work with, but yeah, that's anything you'd like to add on that one?
No, I just maybe some highlights. I believe Gary is working on this quite a bit, right? Mike Terrell was working on this and posting about it quite a bit over the last year or so.
Yeah,
So
so
I've been.
if you go to Gary's blog, if it's up and running,
Mhm.
he's doing some work earlier on this site. No, it seems to be happy. And you search for CVE, he won't have too many posts about that. But this is the one
Yeah.
that we're talking about. And if you read the official Microsoft documentation that is also being updated several times this year, it's not just a simple patch. There is a lot of configurations that you have to do on the devices, and those configurations require multiple reboots. The largest number of reboots I've seen to implement this rule is 8. So it's quite the difference from a monthly patch, put it that way.
Yeah.
But the new 80K version that was released just now in December was the first version where Microsoft provided built-in scripts to make sure that you can create media that is configured for devices where you have done this configuration. So for the fun of it, as you do, I have here an 80K version from May, and I have one here from December, and I was comparing the two of them just to see what the differences were. So we're using good old WinDiff. That was part of the Windows Server 2003 resource kit, but it does has a good option to just compare directory structures and tell you what files that are different and what is are identical, etc. But long story short, in the new 80K, if I open up an imaging tools and command prompt, and for example, when you create the media, this one has a new switch here that allow you to also have it copy boot files that are indeed signed with next level UEFI. So if you do have devices that are mitigated, at least now you have the chance of using a native tool or native script. This is just a batch file, really. This one here, it's not a command line or anything. It's just or executable. It's just a batch file. But
Does
at least
this
it
go?
shows. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Does this go along with kind of what we were hoping for, right? That Microsoft was going to hopefully make this a little bit easier for us as we get closer and closer to that enforcement.
Yeah, I hope so, because right now it's a bit of a mess,
Yeah.
I have to say. But yeah. So that's been a big discussion for the year, of course. I mean, but we had in general, because this is often the community that drives this type of information, and when we prepared for this session, we did pick out what we call community jewels, solutions, ideas, scripts that just tends to make our life quite much easier. Andrew, how do you feel about sharing some of your favorites there?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll grab a couple here off the list. Some of the first ones that I think I'd like to highlight are, and I have throughout the year. We both have Ugur Cook's tools that he's released and repeatedly updated throughout the year. Which does make me want to note real quick as we go through these, Johan. Some of these are maintained and released by a single person, but they are community solutions. Several of them have seen other communities contributed to them. They've fixed bugs, they've added additional resources to them and everything. So I just want to make sure we call that out ahead of time. Anyways, some of Ugur's tools here. IntuneBrew that Johan just pulled up, thank you, sir, is one of the first ones that I want to call out. So I am no Mac OS management expert, but back in November, purchased my first MacBook in, gosh, I don't know, probably a decade. Because we have some folks that we know that are very big fans of using them. B, that feels like a little bit of a gap that I'd like to fill in terms of systems management. So using macOS with Intune, which has also become quite a topic this past year, but we'll touch on that in a little bit. I wanted to start to figure out how I could do things easier, right? There's a lot of scripting. There's a lot of things that have to happen in Intune to manage Mac OS. So I came across Uger's tool called IntuneBrew. After finding out there is a tool called Brew that will help you install applications on Mac OS, similar to Chocolatey or Winget, things like that. And Uger's tool here takes Brew and PowerShell and helps automatically create these a set of applications in Intune, a set of your choosing. Actually, if you don't mind, Johan, would you scroll down a little bit? He has a list of applications that are currently supported. And there we go. Thank you, sir. So here's the table of the currently supported applications, and basically using this tool, you can select which applications you want. For example, Acrobat Reader, let's say, if we want to deploy that out to or assign that out to our Mac OS devices, we can use this tool to actually create the application in Intune, fills in the description, all of that relevant metadata that we want for that application, and then allows you to assign it out to your users. In a much easier manner than going through and manually creating them. So really fantastic stuff here. I've been very happy with that. It's made my getting into macOS management a little bit easier. Then Uger has another tool called the Intune Assignment Checker, and I've been following this a little bit more closely the last couple of months. It seems like he's been updating it quite frequently, and we get this question a lot. This isn't the only tool for doing this. I know Tim has oh gosh, what was Tim's last name? I'll find it.
Nilima?
Maybe. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling here. Timmy Anderson has a script to also help with this. But Uger's got an Intune assignment checker, which helps determine what you have assigned to various users, groups, devices across the Intune platform. I have not used it yet, but I noticed over the last week or maybe 2 weeks, he's used some of the downtime that we're afforded as part of our end of the year breaks to add basically a report for these rather than having just everything go through the command line. So again, this is just going to make your life a little bit easier because we don't necessarily have simple ways of checking these assignments depending on what point of view we're looking at in the Intune Admin Center. So very useful tool here for us Intune admins. And last but not least from Uger, the KQL Search website that he created. What this does is actually searches a subset of GitHub repositories for KQL queries that we can use for various purposes. So there are half a dozen repositories where KQL queries are posted that this website is actually searching. So we've got one from Rod Trent. We've got one from Matt Zorich, who has some fantastic Sentinel queries. A lot of these are around Sentinel and Defender. But I think now that we also have device query and inventorying being added into Intune, we're going to see more of those queries as well. I know Uger did create an Intune KQL repository that also gets searched from this website. So really great stuff here that he's put out throughout the year. And if I remember correctly, it might have been 2024 that led to Uger getting awarded MVP, which does not surprise me with the amount of stuff that's come out from him. So
fantastic.
Yeah. Maybe before I continue rambling on, do you want to hit somebody else's tools or highlight some other tools, and then I'll do some more?
Sure. I'm a big fan of Petri's solution, Petri Paavola, Microsoft MVP from Finland. But he has two solutions that really stands out to me, and this is the management extension diagnostics, basically a parser to make it way simpler to parse all the log files that are part of the sidecar agent or the management extension agent in Intune that gets installed the first time you either deploy a Win32 app or a script from Intune, or if you happen to enroll a device through Autopilot, that also tends to install that software, that agent into Windows, and that agent has a ton of log files. They will also change this year. I'll come back to that a little bit later, but this is a great tool to support that. Petri also has one of my favorite tools, the device details GUI, which allow you to pick a device and you get really good summary view of everything that happened to be assigned to that device. So rather than this screenshot here, let me just open up a PowerShell prompt and run that tool. I have a somewhat recent version available. I think it's this one. Yeah. So basically, you pick a filter, and for example, devices synced in the last 24 hours, and you search for them. And behind the scenes, there's a lot of graph calls coming in, and eventually you get some devices back that has synced the last 24 hours, and then you can create a report out of them. And again, a lot of PowerShell, a lot of graph going on in the background, but he's simply doing so many queries in different categories to summarize information about that device in a single pane. Fantastically useful for help desk. And if I would have to click around in the Intune GUI to find all this information myself, it will take me quite some time, probably 20, 30 minutes to get. And usually this tool spits back the result within a minute for me. So, assuming everything is cooperating in the back end here, we'll see. It's nothing like a live demo, but here we are. Here I can see all the applications that have been assigned to this one, which of them has been installed, all the groups that the device is a member of, and basically tons of information that just gives me at least high-level overview of everything this device is doing at the moment. So, great solution. Like it. All right. Another favorite of mine is IntuneManagement that we showcased many times. I'm just going to head and close this one for now. This is a tool that allows you to export, import, view, document everything that you have in your Intune tenant. This tool is also the tool of choice when importing what I call the Intune Jumpstart Kit. But the tool looks like this. If I go up one level here, version 398. I'm not entirely sure that's the latest one, but it's somewhat recent one. So see what it says. It usually nags me if I'm not on the latest version, so we'll see. But yeah, so here you have your tenant, you log into it, and for example, if I would look into my PowerShell scripts, it will show you more the PowerShell scripts that I have available on this one. But this one allows you, as I mentioned, to import, export, document, compare things that you have in your tenant, and across pretty much everything that you can configure and create in Intune. This one is also used to import, for example, my settings catalog here. If I take a look at those, I can import things here from a baseline that you can download. So this is the Open Baseline project or Open Intune Baseline project, where you basically get a jump start of well-tested, proven settings or configurations that you can just import into a lab and start to play around with and see what you like. And they are written to be imported with this particular utility. So if you're looking for just, you're new into Intune, you just got your first lab tenant set up and going, and you just want to get started with something, this baseline project is downright amazing. A lot of work being put into that one. And if I can type the Open Intune Baseline here, it will be great. But this is the one. This is the kit. And this, for example, if you go into the Windows era or Windows section, this is where you have the different device configurations, different settings catalog, and all of that good stuff.
Nice looking naming convention there too, huh?
Beautiful. It's so lovely. My eyes tear up. It is brilliant. This is a Windows one that's from this particular project. It defines the product or category it's using. It's for devices. It had the details about it. This is just an version. It's just perfect.
Yeah.
So
I agree. And we've been on a never-ending quest to find the best naming convention, though I think everybody is. It's fantastic to see this one.
yeah. I mean, from a technical point of view, the point is having one that
Yes.
stick to, rather than naming them. Especially if you're working with multiple folks, makes life easier.
Yeah, it kind of goes along with just like ITIL, for example, right? They thought that as long as everybody's speaking and understanding at least a common language, couldn't agree more. It makes life much easier. You're less prone to mistakes. It's easier to automate things. You're speaking the same language. It's very important.
Yeah. But I know you're a big fan of another gentleman, Mr. Merrill or Merrill Fernando.
Oh yes, Merrill, fantastic. We've showcased some of his stuff a few times, quite frankly. But Maester is a project that he and some others released earlier this year. It is a PowerShell module, essentially built on top of another PowerShell module, or at least the framework uses another PowerShell module called Pester. If you're not familiar with Pester, it is a PowerShell module that is used for testing, essentially. So we can present test cases to Pester, and it can test whatever case that you've written and report out those results. Maester at first basically came out with a number of standard tests for standard practices across the Microsoft 365 and Entra environment. For example, in the demo GIF there, you can see that it's testing for things like specific conditional access policies are covering the Azure Admin Portal or Entra Admin Center or things like that. There may be some common configurations that are recommended for SharePoint or for Exchange. Those would show up in here as well. So I don't think that this project is even a year old yet. But if you actually go to Johan, there is another link that I had in there that Maester V1 was actually released just last month, and kind of highlights some of the contributions that they had over the years.
Okay, I think I see that one. Give me just a moment, sir.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I see that it's not actually a link.
I'll do my best to.
I'm
here.
I'm confident. I've seen you copy and paste before. I
did
know
it.
you can do it. Good job. Thank you. But you can just see here some of the contributions that have been made over the last 9 months alone are huge. And on top of this, so they've added different alerts, they've added Azure automation support, Azure DevOps support, those sorts of things. So you can actually use this PowerShell module to regularly test these things, to check for things like configuration drift, or for new tests that come up that go against maybe a specific security baseline. So, for example, in the new tests section there on the page that Johan has up, you'll see that as soon as it was released, CISA tests and then CIS benchmark tests were starting to get added to this PowerShell module. And because it's built, because it's open source and it's built on something like PowerShell and Maester, you can add your own tests in there as well. Just one of my favorite things that came out last year, because it's more of a framework, than a specific this is what you need to do type of tool. And testing things is important. I mean, we work with so many complex systems that testing to make sure something is configured the way that we expect all the time on a regularly scheduled basis is incredibly important. So I definitely recommend checking out this tool. I don't know that it was released in 2024, but I do like to plug it when I get the chance because I do also feel like it makes life a little bit easier. But Merrill has another website called cmd.ms, which kind of helps navigate the jungle, as it were, that can be all of the various admin centers, portals, and whatnot that we need to visit on a daily basis in our life as Microsoft systems managers, I'll say. So you can see here, basically, there are a bunch of different portals. We have the Entra portal that we're in, where we have the Intune Admin Center that we're in. We have the Azure portal. Maybe we're working with Defender. Not only do we have to remember those portals, but sometimes we also want to get directly to a specific link. So if I wanted to look at something like devices in Intune, would you mind typing in devices there, Johan, or start typing in devices?
You can try to.
There we go. Thank you so much. And so the website here will actually get you the direct link for devices in Intune or devices in Entra or the device settings that we often have to manage within Entra. So not only is this a reference, but it's also somewhat of a search engine. And the website also has browser extensions that will help autocomplete some of these links for you if you want to use it that way. So fantastic tool there.
So if you're saying if I click one of these, it will take me to my device node in an Entra.
That's the idea.
That is the idea. And I like to say it did that.
That's awesome. That's again, this is time and time again we see the community coming together for these quality of life improvements, and this is hands down one of my favorite of the last year or so.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And related to this one is also one that we frequently showcase, and that is msportals.io.
Yep.
That just has a link or reference to all the different portals that exist. It's also a good summary. Doesn't support this functionality, but still, it's a good example as well, I think.
Yep, I agree. Awesome.
Let's see what else. I for the fun of it, I sat down and went through the most popular blog posts on our little blog here.
Yeah.
We had about 500,000 views over the year, but the top 10 one, some of them kind of surprised me. Some of them certainly didn't. For the past, I think 4 years now, 3.5 years, uh, this particular one or this content has been in the top one. Basically, how to trigger reinstallations of Win32 apps. So, this particular blog post was written back in March 20, so coming up on 3 years soon here. But this one is the number one visited blog post so far. And I do recommend to read through the comment section also, because Microsoft over 2024 actually made some critical changes around Win32 apps that changed how they log things, where you get the information. So recommend to read that one. Another one that kind of surprised me a little bit, but this one here is number 2.
Wow.
How to fix VBScript support. But long story short, don't use this. Uh, do not use this version of the ADK. Pick a newer one. You cannot get the one from May anymore because Microsoft removed that one, but you can snatch the December one, which is identical to the May one. Unfortunately, because there were some bugs that I was hoping they would fix, but don't worry about this one anymore. Pick a later one or go back to 22H2, which still works beautifully. I recommend that one instead. On number 3, this one here, how to build images, reference images. I'd like to add, I have newer versions available on the blog. So if anyone is interested in finding out how to build an image for 24H2, I recommend following that one. There are some changes that I should be aware of, but that's to me an indication that people are still doing it, even though there is a trend in the industry to kind of move away from it. But yeah, numbers don't lie. So there we are. This one was also popular. Of course, one of the big announcements from late last year was that Microsoft is deprecating MDT officially with plan of end of support in October this year. It doesn't mean it will stop working, but especially for folks that are doing the config manager integration, Microsoft is very clearly putting down a statement saying, do not continue to use those templates because it might break your sequences. The scripts, by all means, continue to use them as long as VBScripts are there. They're going to work just fine, but the sequence template may actually cause you some headache. So stay away from those going forward and migrate away to standard sequences and remove the extensions. The biggest surprise was number 5 here. This is a post that Matthias Benning put together in 2017 related to AppLocker, but this one is still being viewed a lot on the blog, even this year. Number 6 is this one here, how to do driver management in MDT Light Touch. And you can see this blog post is not exactly fresh. 11 years old, or 12 years old now in 2025.
Wow.
But that one made our number 6. Number 7 was this one here, how you can use Intune apps to just copy files and folders. When I wrote this blog post a few years back, I was primarily using to just download tools that I wanted to have on devices. But lately, I've been using this for something very different, to copying down drivers. Because when deploying feature updates from Intune on its own doesn't have an ability to inject drivers. But you can deploy an app that makes sure drivers are copied. And then you can borrow, that was not the one I was looking for. This one. You can tell Intune by using a remediation script to inject drivers that happen to be in that folder. So you use the app to make sure the drivers are in that folder, and you tell Intune to use them. Simple as that. Number 8 is, number 8. This one never dies. This one is also 8 years old. We still see SysPrep failing because of stuff that gets either downloaded to the device or that Microsoft decided to put into the image itself. Breaking things. You need to remove them before you can SysPrep a device.
Was this the one that we just ran into an issue with Copilot?
Yes, sir. The Copilot app in the November media. And by the way, if you guys deployed Windows 11 from October or November media, you may not get updates. So you may have to either redeploy those devices or assign the December update manually somehow. But that there is a bug being worked on basically as we speak, where devices that were imaged through using that particular media don't get updates. You do not get that problem if the device was imaged with the December media from last year. So I saw that on Reddit showing up. Number 11 was this one here, command lines option for Software Center. For every reason, it seems to be popular still. And the last one, I blame you for, Andrew. But the hydration kit. Yeah. Still
Awesome.
going strong. Yeah.
Perfect moment to also mention I am working on the Server 2025 version, so hopefully we'll have an update on that. I plan to have an update out to all of you on that over the course of the next month.
Yeah.
So. Awesome.
Let's see, what else? So those were the top 10 there.
We did have, this just happened to be extremely recent, last week, I believe, the M365 Maps website from Aaron Dinage was updated.
This one here, yes. Yeah.
Yes. Fantastic.
It's July. Oh, it just updated. Did you see that? It just...
It's so funny because that exact same thing happened to me earlier as well. And I was like, wait, what? Huh? But fantastic website. I always make sure to preface when we're talking about licensing that we are not licensing experts, but that's why this website is so helpful. And still talk to your licensing person before you assume anything. But the website that Aaron has put together here really helps navigate what features and applications are available across the various M365 Defender suites and different plans. So, for example, Johan, would you mind clicking on like E5 for M365 Enterprise, or EMS is fine. It doesn't really matter.
E5 Enterprise, got it.
Perfect, thank you. So this large map here is essentially everything that is encompassed in E5, but then you can see there are the various step-ups that you can do, different add-ons to E5. It shows the difference between, for example, Defender for Office 365 Plan 1 and Defender for Office 365 Plan 2. And you actually get that visualization of what's included and excluded from those various plans. I wouldn't say it necessarily dives into all of the nitty-gritty details of each one of these plans, but really helps the overall understanding of where you might have or need additional licensing for specific devices, for specific users, or across your entire tenant.
No, but for example, this one saved my bacon the other week. I was trying to figure out why all my BIOS vulnerabilities were just gone from my security tenant or from my Defender for Endpoint, and it turned out that they now require an additional license to get all that extra detail. So I have to buy more licenses to be able to see data that I could see just fine earlier this year. It's like, but this was well, just example how useful this one is. That even though
Absolutely.
I did have an E5, I needed this additional stuff.
Yep. Something I try to keep bookmarked because memorizing all of this,
Not today,
no,
sir. No, not today.
no, no, definitely not.
So, I mean, we will come back to a few other community things we stumble across over the year, but I'd like to take the opportunity to also say thank you to everyone out there who is helping out so much in the community. And unfortunately, we cannot mention everyone. We'll be here until Sunday if we did. But for example, we do have our friends over at Intune.training. They have been constantly pushing out fantastic videos around Intune content. So if you haven't had a chance to catch up some of those, recommend doing that. So yeah, from the beginning, it was only Adam and Steve, but has grown out to additional folks, of course, helping out that platform.
Mhm.
And we also have this gentleman.
Steve Weiner over at Get Rubik's.
Yeah. Also some really good content, Intune related. So what I like about Steve's videos is they are often quite short. They are often like 10 to 15 minutes long, and they target one specific topic, and he executes them very, very well. Very
Yeah,
easy to understand. So highly recommend that.
absolutely. He's one of the folks in our community that this year has just been a machine. It seems like, for lack of a better word, it's impressive to see how much content he's put out at the level that you mentioned, Johan. It's really great.
Yeah, I totally agree. Uh, and then sometimes there are things that tends to throw a good chunk of wrench in, or a big wrench in the wheels, and that was the Microsoft Graph changes that was done this year, or started actually last year, but they were enforced earlier this year. I forgot what date, but it was the Azure module that was gone. It was the previous Graph module that was gone, and forcing us to rewrite a lot of our scripts.
Yeah, absolutely. The MS Online module as well was another big one that has just refused to go away for as long as it's been around. Deprecated back in March of last year, but Microsoft has really only guaranteed that they will continue working until March of this year. So if you have not started to move over to using the Microsoft Graph SDK that Johan has up here, definitely start like yesterday moving your scripts. As you can see, if you scroll down just a little, Johan, you can see that there were quite a few versions that came out last year, and that was really in anticipation of this change happening. There was a lot of community feedback that went into these. This still isn't my favorite set of 30 or so modules in the world, but it does the job that I need a lot of the time. So definitely want to start getting used to using this module.
Yeah, the biggest trouble I had with this module is actually making sure I'm on the right version of it, because it's a
Yeah,
little bit painful to uninstall and upgrade to the latest version. Often requires a little bit of cleanup in between. And you have to uninstall them in the right order. And if there are dependent modules, that will also cause some problems. But
yep,
it's doable. It's just a little mess, a bit messy. All right.
definitely.
So that was a big change. Another big change last year was, of course, also finally getting device query over to Intune. So basically, sorry, device hardware inventory over to Intune. Device query we had a while as part of the log analytics. But basically, if I go to device, and for example, I picked my AP devices here, we now have this quite recent Resource Explorer. So this was all started up now in December, but this is where you have additional hardware information. I just expect Microsoft to continue to build up on this as we go by, but this was a major milestone. The industry has been asking for this for a very long time in Intune. So it's nice to see that. And it's also nice to see that this is part of Core, or Intune Core as Microsoft call it. So there are no additional licenses required. Device query that I accidentally mentioned first, that one still requires a separate license, but Resource Explorer does not. The hardware inventory does not.
Yeah.
So.
On both of those things, though, I think this year we should be seeing some additional improvements. I'm sorry if you mentioned it already, but we should see this for Android and iOS devices as well, iPads, and device query will also see multiple device query as well as an improvement.
Indeed. Another big thing this year was also what the community often refers to as Autopilot version 2, but a new platform for Autopilot. So NIAS, of course, has a ton of different blog posts related to this scenario, but long story short, there are new options to provision devices, have devices being enrolled as part of the Autopilot process. And like the hardware inventory, this is just a version 1. I see this as also a platform change that Microsoft did for Windows 11 only, not for Windows 10 devices. But going forward, I see them building more top on this. So more stuff on top of this. So I expect 2025 to involve quite a number of changes or enhancements to Autopilot also.
Yep. Great.
Other things that's been big in 2024. I know our friend Dean Ellerby, he's a big Mac OS fan, and he runs basically all our Mac OS training on the Academy as well. But Mac OS management has received tons of improvements in Intune. It's not fully comparable with Jamf and other solutions, but in comparison to what it was in 2023, very, very different. A lot of features being added into the Mac OS management space. So if you ever evaluated it before, I highly recommend to do it again because a lot of things have changed.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I started off this year with, you mentioned earlier, Johan, that I have had the opportunity to present up at the Twin City Systems Management User Group, and one of the presenters, Matthew Roy, talked about how they did quite a bit of planning, months of planning, to move from Jamf to fully Intune on about 3,000 devices, but with a lot of planning, communication, moved that large of a footprint, which is the largest I had personally come across, moving from Jamf to Intune in just a few weeks. And I think that sort of triggered my interest in learning more and more about this year. As you said, we've seen changes every single month with Intune around iOS, iPad OS, and Mac OS. So happy to see that.
Absolutely. Another big change this year was an uptake from Microsoft on two platforms on their own right. One is the focus on, or new focus on, Windows on ARM, allowing organizations not just to deploy it themselves these days. It's now available in Config Manager to image devices that are based on Windows on ARM, but also to manage them with both Config Manager and Intune. For example, the latest Config Manager 2409, they now added in so you can do BitLocker on ARM devices, you can do software metering on ARM devices, you can do pretty much what you used to be able to do on regular Windows devices for 64-bit, but also now when they're running on Windows on ARM. And Windows on ARM also gives some interesting capabilities in terms of crunching numbers. So everything that's going on through AI now, Copilot and ChatGPT and all other AI solutions, they will take advantage of running local learning models on these devices, leveraging the hardware that becomes available. And for example, Windows on ARM today, I mean, you, Andrew, you got yourself an ARM device. You have your Mac OS machine, and battery life on those platforms is just amazing. Performance is pretty awesome too.
Yeah. I don't have anything but good to say about those 2 points. It's fantastic to. I can use my Mac for the next couple of hours, have it down to 80%, close it up, and come back to it tomorrow. Use it for a couple more hours, and it's down to 77%. It sat there in standby, no battery draining. It's great stuff.
Yeah. So I expect 2025 we see more of these devices being brought into enterprises. Still didn't happen as quickly as I thought it would in 2024, but heck, but this time next year we'll know. So yeah, good stuff.
There was another very exciting thing that we started in 2024 that we probably should have mentioned. It actually goes into a question that Benny had here in the chat. The ViaMonstra Online Academy community was launched earlier this year. And on that note, Benny asked about the software update troubleshooting recording that we did in December, and where you might be able to find that.
Yeah, so if you go into the Academy, click on the community, I'm logged in as my alter ego Hans, which is technically one of my first names, but I'm known as Johan otherwise. But if you go to that community, this is where we have the recording from the event available somewhere here. I think I pinned it under Intune, actually, thinking of it. Because it was about software up. Yep, there we go.
Yep.
So that way you find that one.
Awesome.
But
a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was great fun.
Yeah.
All right. Dang, time flies. That was actually one thing I wanted to show. See if I can find that link. Give me just one moment, sir. Mm-hmm. It was from our friend Ben Whitmore.
Oh, is that the thing that he's been teasing the last couple of days?
Yes, very much so.
See if I can find it too.
Yeah, I have it right here.
Okay.
So for those of you that are trying to figure out ways to migrate apps from Config Manager, this one was posted today. That he's very close for a general availability end-to-end migration from Config Manager to Intune. So crossing my fingers, it's going to be released soon. Thank you, Ben, for getting this one ready. Love it.
Yep. That's shiny.
That is shiny. So, but heck yeah, that was a quick rundown of 2024 and ending up with the very first post for 2025.
Yeah. And it feels like we still really only scratched the surface of how much happened.
Oh yeah, we could have spent hours and hours on this.
Yeah.
When we started to make lists earlier this week, it was like thing after thing after thing. It's like, but yeah, we only have 60 minutes, so here we are.
But next week we should be back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Oh yes, indeed. Everyone out there, wish you the happiest 2025. Best wishes for the year. And thank you, Andrew, and thank you everyone out there for joining us. And hopefully we'll see you next week. Bye.
Couldn't have said it better. Thank you all. Have a great one.
All right.